Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SSMP Community Engagement Committee meeting. I'm one of your co-chairs, Sahara Wasano, and our other co-chair is Rebecca Terraza Baxter. The purpose of this meeting is to inform the committee about upcoming public engagement opportunities to provide feedback and guidance to the SSMP team on community engagement and effective outreach strategies. Welcome, everybody. Next slide.
The reminder. Oh, thank you.
So instructions on using Zoom webinar. Choose your preferred language for this meeting by clicking on the globe icon labeled interpretation to choose English or Spanish. Please click mute original audio or else you will hear the meeting in both Spanish and English. Instrucciones para la conferencia por Zoom. Elige el idioma que preferencia tenga usted para esta reunión haciendo el clic en el icono del globo denominado interpretación. Para elegir inglés o español, haga el clic en Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original para escuchar la reunión en ambos idiomas. So we'll take a couple of minutes as people click. So tomamos unos minutos mientras la gente escoge el idioma que prefieren.
Muting original audio turned you off, Sahara.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
As long as I don't click mute original audio, can hear you just fine.
Okay. I wonder, do we know why that's in the instructions?
If you select the English language and then mute the original audio, you should be able to hear Sahara. If you want to give it a try.
I've tried that.
Basado en la instrucción para que puedan escuchar la conferencia en español a través de Zoom, si tienen cualquier pregunta, levante su mano. Okay. I think we're good. Si tienen cualquier problema para conectarse en español, por favor, levante su mano y una persona le va a ayudar a conectarse. So what I was just sharing right now is for those who are clicking on their interpretation to Spanish, if they have any problems, to please raise their hand and they'll get the support that they need. So we can click to the next slide, please. So now instructions are using Zoom webinar. Closed captions in English is available by clicking the CC icon in your Zoom window. Please use the Q&A for questions and answer feature if you need assistance. During the public comment period, there will be designated times for questions. If you are on the webinar to request to speak, please click the raise hand button. If on the teleconference line, press #2. Each speaker will have a time limit. You may also submit a question using the Q&A feature. And I'm assuming by now things are being translated, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Next slide. So did the welcome already. Next slide. And I'll pass it to my fellow co-chair, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Terraza Baxter. I am the Intergovernmental Relations Director for the County of Imperial and the co-chair of the SSMP Community Engagement Committee. Thank you, Sahara, for the welcome and the instructions on the translation. It's wonderful to have that, that feature now available for our community. Just want to briefly go over our agenda. First, as you saw here, we already had the welcome by Ms. Sahara. We will have an opportunity right after this for member comments. And then provide some quick roundtable of updates from the committee members. We'll have a small icebreaker. We'll be conducting a little short polling exercise. Then after that, we'll be providing you by the state team an upcoming SSMP update community meeting coordination. So we'll be discussing the purpose of the meeting, discuss proposed topics. I mean, really the reason for this group and this meeting is to solicit feedback on ways that we can engage and support promotion of this event. Then after that, we'll be discussing the NEPA training session, and as well, similar situation, just sharing as to the reason for the training session and getting some additional feedback and input from the committee members. Next slide, please. We do have somewhat of a lengthy agenda today. We also will be talking about the CEC meeting times, language access needs. We'll be discussing the polling results that we conducted at the last meeting, and then also next steps of language access needs and what will be taking place after due to the results of the poll. Then we'll be discussing and providing the group with a working groups update. At the last meeting, we created some working groups related to the annual review for the group itself and membership composition and other things. So you will be receiving an update from the working group members. And then we'll have a public comment period. This public comment period is mainly to address issues that are not on the agenda. For each agenda item, we will provide some brief time after we've provided the updates and the presentations to allow for feedback and some additional input from the community members and the committee members as well. So as I mentioned, this public comment period is more for things that are not on the agenda. And then we'll be wrapping it up by reviewing the action items that were discussed during this meeting and wrapping the meeting up and discussing their potential possible timeframe for the next meeting date. So next slide, please. I'll hand this off to you, Ms. Sahara.
Thank you. So this is relatively a new agenda item to this committee. This is an opportunity. It's just 5 minutes. So don't get carried away with members' comments and updates. So this space is dedicated for information sharing, community events, projects the members are working on that they seek support amongst committee members of Salton Sea related efforts. So we have two hands. I saw Chuck's hand first and then Carrie.
So is it okay for me to go?
Yes.
Chuck?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to share, I just received a few days ago a new report, a scientific report titled Potential Major Greenhouse Gas Emissions from Proposed Salton Sea Long Range Plans by Jenny Ross. And I have not had a chance to share this with everyone on the committee. Some of you probably seen it because it was already sent, the author of the report sent it to a number of, Salton Sea management directors and so on. But I will send a copy of this to the committee members after this meeting. I think it's a very new, important information here regarding how when the sea dries up, because it was such a productive ecosystem, there's a lot of carbon hidden in the bottom of the sea from all the birds, fish, and plants which lived and died there. And if we let it be exposed to the air, it will become a new source, a major source of carbon dioxide and methane, which would be bad for global warming. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Carrie and then Pat.
Hello, everyone. Always good to catch up with you and work on the Salton Sea. I just wanted to give a quick update about a couple events. On the 16th, we held the second annual Salton Sea Water Import Forum, where many of the engineering teams that have projects under review with the California Natural Resources Agency and UC Santa Cruz presented their plans for how to add water to the valley. This is not just about the Salton Sea, it's about water import to the entire region, which I think we will need water here in the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years. So we're excited that they showed up and shared plans for how to make sure that any of the projects that we're working on can have enough water. And that's on the front page of Ecomedia Compass. We are also putting together 2 other events upcoming soon. We have Earth Day on April 23rd in Desert Shores. And I'd like to invite members of the committee to come share Salton Sea information with the public at that date. There will be scientific presenters, community presenters, and music and art in the theme of Salton Sea restoration. And many of you have been in the past, and we're really looking forward to this one and supporting Salton Sea restoration. So that's Saturday, April 23rd. And then we're also holding a Salton Sea Localized Restoration Projects Forum in the similar format as the Water Import Forum, but this is focusing on other restoration initiatives, including wetland development. That'll be on June 5th, and all of the information there is on the front page of ecomediacompass.org, and we encourage you to participate. Please share, please feedback with us. We want to incorporate your views and make these things as good as they can be to support our collective efforts. So thank you so much. And here we go.
Thank you, Carrie. Pat, and then Tom.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Just kind of want to circle back around. The county and the Salton Sea Authority and the state held our first North Lake Pilot Demonstration Project outreach virtual meeting this past Saturday afternoon. Thanks to everybody that helped get the word out. I think we had a really good first time attendance, and we look forward to our next meeting and hoping it can be in person. Thank you.
Tom?
Good. Thank you. I have a question for the Salton Sea Management Program folks on this meeting. And we've seen the info put out on the dust mitigation happening on the West Shores, and that it is to be based largely on vegetation establishment with some temporary protection from hay bales for the vegetation. However, when I go out to the site where the hay bales are being placed and talk to the crew actually putting them out on the ground and the leadership of that crew, they say, well, we don't know anything about vegetation. We're just placing hay bales in a pattern to stop the wind, and we'll put up some dust monitors and see how well it works. So there seems to be a bit of a disconnect in the information that we're getting from the Salton Sea Management Program about the plan for the West Shores and what we actually see on the ground. When we see this pattern of hay bales, it was the same as was used at Owens Dry Lake for purely dust mitigation with no vegetation involved. And when the crew has no understanding of any kind of vegetation plan and nothing is being provided around that. So we could get a little explanation from Salton Sea Management Program about what the timing of this plan is and how the hay bales being placed out in the pattern relate to eventual vegetation, if that's still in the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
I do have an update from Arturo Delgado late this morning regarding Tom's question, and I could just briefly address that if that's helpful. Good point, Tom. We expect that on the playa we should see habitats and vegetation and wetlands, and we did just see hay bales installed, and it kind of confused the community and it turned into a motorcycle track. We don't want to close the beach to people, and so there's a concern there. Mr. Delgado said they're taking steps to address inappropriate use, including installing no trespassing signs and coordinating increased patrols. In the future, they'll investigate the use of fencing to protect newly planted vegetation particularly. They aim to overall support public access and increase that. Well, I don't know how you can increase it if you add any signs, but to increase public access, but they also need to protect the dust suppression and vegetation enhancement efforts. We intend to start planting native vegetation in the coming weeks, and he's still very interested in the possibility of having a volunteer planting event. So we had talked about this in the past. CNRA may be looking for volunteers to help plant vegetation. So they're looking into next steps in the next few weeks. I hope that we put some green things in the dirt and not just hay bales. We don't want to live next to just hay bales. But that's the update that I have. And I think it'll be good for this committee and CNRA in general to explain a bit more about the projects that are being installed next to our Publix, so that it receives better feedback and acceptance in general. So that's an update to that question, and we hope there will be green in the ground very soon.
Thank you, Carrie, for that. Really quick response. There is like that chain of communication already happening with them. So, I'm not so sure, because this committee is around community engagement, if the staff who are taking care of that project are present in this committee meeting. I'm wondering, Miguel, as your one of the representatives that has close contact, if there is any need to follow up with Tom to give him more information about this, and with Carrie?
Yeah, you bet. If I could just add, and thank you, Carrie, for providing a little bit more context of what the state is doing, and not just placing the hay bales. Another thing that is worth saying or mentioning is that, the team also began harvesting local seeds to bring into the site. So the hay bales, for now, it's a measure that will allow the protect those plants that will be coming in the next few weeks or so, and enable growth for this new plants, or these new pods that are being brought in. So those plants had already been tested for salinity, and to make sure that they could thrive on this current conditions at this location. So in the coming weeks, you will be able to see some plant growth out there, not just the hay bales, but we will definitely need everybody's support, the community's support, to help us, kind of keep some sort of control of who. We don't want to limit access to the playa, of course, but we would definitely want to take care of the work that's being done to keep the vegetation in place and enable its growth in the future.
Thank you, Miguel. My best recommendation to keep these things alive is to involve the community, obviously a little bit sooner, but to involve them in the planting process, because if they take part in this and take pride in this and take pride in the restoration of it, they're going to want to help you keep it alive. If not, if something just happens that limits their access, it might literally go up in flames, as we've seen things happen in the past. So I just encourage us to, as soon as possible, engage the community in letting them know what's being planned and solicit their help to keep these things alive and plant, because then they're going to love it versus just question it and hate it. So if you have a date or anything you'd like to share, we're happy to share that with the public, and we can organize volunteers to help plant things if that's helpful.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Tom, for the question.
Thank you. I need to close off this segment of the agenda. I think that we were able to answer some of the questions and then also hear some of the announcements. So if we can move to the next agenda item, which is the polling exercise with committee members and public. So next slide.
So the next slide, yeah, so this is meant to be an icebreaker. We'll have a poll question, and actually I'm going to call up Josh Zipperman to kind of help me facilitate the polling that we'll be conducting, and to kind of explain why we have chosen to conduct this type of icebreaker.
Thank you, Becky. Good afternoon, everyone. We just had a really great meeting with the small annual review working group last week to review the membership composition of the committee, and to get a little bit more information on just what the makeup of the committee is, especially the geographic makeup of the committee. We thought it'd be a good little icebreaker to ask a real quick question here to see where everyone is from and see where everyone is living, more importantly. So I'm just going to share my screen real quickly and run through a really short, quick Mentimeter question. And so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Menti, but if you are not, I'm going to start the presentation now so you can see it. So you can take a quick picture with your phone with the QR code, or you can go to menti.com and enter in the code shown here. And I'll give everyone a minute or two to do that really quickly. And then we'll ask one quick question and we'll view the results, and then that's it. We'll be moving on. So I'll give everyone another 30 seconds or so before we start. And for those of you that are that have this pulled up, is it working for you so far? You guys seeing it? Thumbs up. Thumbs. See a head shaking. Thumbs up.
Josh?
I see some thumbs up. Yes.
Mine is just loading.
Okay, that might be because I need to start the presentation. So,
Same here.
all right, I'm going to start it.
Oh, I see.
So hopefully this is working for everyone. Perfect, great.
Can you repeat the code? It's not accepting it for me.
Okay, let me go back 1 second here.
It's on top of the screen, Josh.
Oh yeah, thank you. So the code is 3822-2046. And I'm sorry for not mentioning this, but this is open to everyone who's attending the meeting. So not just committee members, but to the public as well.
And where do we enter this code at?
So if you go to menti, menti.com, www.menti.com, and the code is 3822-2046. And it's also shown at the top of the screen. So we'll give it another minute or so as results are coming in, but it looks like we have a lot of folks from Coachella, from Brawley, from Banning, Salton City, Palm Desert, La Quinta, some in Los Angeles, Sacramento, Salton City, I already said. So this is great. This is really helpful for us. What we really want to do in the group, and we're going to discuss this later on in the agenda as well, is really just sort of see where most of the committee is from geographically, or living right now geographically. And that will help us in our analysis of where we might have some potential gaps in terms of representation. So I'll give this another 30 seconds in case you haven't taken the poll. If for some reason you weren't able to access the poll and you would like to email me with your information, just what city you live in, that would work as well.
Jenny, I see your hand up. Did you have a question specifically about this poll?
Oh, yeah. I was just wondering if everyone in the meeting is filling this out, how does that inform what we understand about the composition of the committee meeting or the committee itself?
It's a good question. We'll be able to figure out where folks are from that are also just participating in the meeting, but we didn't want to limit it to just the committee as well. So we wanted to have it open.
Got it. Thanks.
All right. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to you, Justin.
So I think we'll wrap this up, and thank you all for participating. I'm sure the results will be shared at a future date. We'll go on to the next agenda item if you don't mind changing the slide. Thank you. I'll hand this back over to Sahara.
Yeah, so this item is going to be around 30 minutes where Miguel will be facilitating this portion, talking about the upcoming SSMP update, community meetings, and coordination. So, Miguel?
Thank you, Sahara. And just so you know, there's a slight change on the agenda you received. We kind of merging both item number 4 and 5. They are related to each other since they will be merged into a single community meeting. So I'll be mentioning about the SSMP community update, and my colleague Melinda will be stepping in to talk about the NEPA training session. So just a slight change there, but it's the same format. If we can go to the next slide, please. And just very quickly, I think you've seen this in the past. This is an updated version of our draft public engagement schedule. There has been, we try to keep it as consistent as we could. There's been a slight, shift, perhaps a week or two on some of these, including this engagement committee meetings. But we're planning on hitting every target of the proposed engagement schedule. So this is for you to kind of have a broad perspective of what to expect throughout the year, and we're also really cognizant about meeting exhaustion, and that there might seem like there's a lot going on, and with that we also plan on having kind of merge some of this report backs or community public events into a single meeting without overloading it as well. So next we'll be discussing the next SSMP update community meeting, and you'll see how this kind of merge into a single event, though we're hitting multiple of the identified dates or public events on this engagement schedule. Next page, please. So yeah, like I briefly mentioned, we're gonna have an update for community members. There's gonna be a space where community members can be able to gather information and report backs on existing work, and perhaps what happened in 2021 and the latest of our program. The Longrange Planning Committee that met late December, and then they're going to have a meeting quite soon. And also the 2022 annual report. We have that annual document that comes out, which will be soon released to the public. And we want to also highlight or provide some high-level details about this report during this community event. So like I said, it's this meeting, it's tentatively planned for March. It's actually intended to be prior to the water board meeting, so people know what's already in the report. That report gets discussed during that water board meeting, so we want to make sure that we can inform as much as we can, so people kind of have an idea of what would be presented during the water board meeting. So at the bottom, you'll see the 4 or 5 tentative topics that we'll be discussing, just a program update, the 2022 annual report, and then report back on the 2 committees. The science committee will be meeting in the near future, and also the NEPA training session. Some of you might recall, probably 2 years ago or so, we had some NEPA workshops happening, and we wanted to get as much input from the community and from everybody, right, to provide comments on this document. So now with this training session, it's more of a sort of NEPA 101 type of approach, not going specifically about the document itself, but more so of what the process is, what even the National Environmental Policy Act means, and things like that, just to help prepare those that are interested in learning this, to know what the process is and what the intention of it is. And if we hit the next slide, and I'll ask my colleague Melinda to step in for a second here and provide us also a brief overview of what this training would be about.
Thanks, Miguel. So Melinda, for those of you who don't know me, I'm in the SSMP program with Department of Water Resources. And as Miguel said, we're really, as we walk through this process and go through NEPA, we want to invite the community to participate. And so one of the ways to do that is to have a training session, and it'll be pretty short, but have a training session and help people understand what NEPA is, how best to comment, what types of things are information that's really useful to all of the agencies, who's involved, some schedules, some timeframes. And so that way, when the public notice comes out about, and it will be useful for this program, but it would also be useful for other projects too. But that way, when the public notice comes out and the public comment period opens, people understand, how best to get involved. So as Miguel said, we'll explain the NEPA process, agency roles, who's involved, and then schedule for comment periods. And then I know people are always interested in what do we do with those comments and how are they addressed? And so we can talk about that too. And then the next steps. And then there will be workshops on our NEPA document, but that will be, that is one of the next steps. But so this is to help people get up to date on how to participate.
Thank you, Melinda. This is, the intention for us sharing this information is just so you, first, of course, your awareness of this is coming up, but also to let us know, trying to help the team or trying to help develop a good strategy to better present this on a public setting. There are limitations, with COVID restrictions and from the state that it will have to be an online meeting unless something changes from today until that day, which it's pretty unlikely, unfortunately. I myself am more of a in-person meeting type of coordinator, but this is what we have, and perhaps it's not new to any one of us, but I know it might be a little bit complicated, perhaps for those areas that have limited access to the internet. So that's why the reasoning behind of bringing or presenting this tentative topics, and for you to start wrapping your head around it and make some good recommendations of what is it that we can do. And if we can please hit the next slide, help us also coordinate on engagement and promotion of this upcoming event. This is the proposed strategy and perhaps something that we've been doing in the past, but we would like to hear from you if you have any other venues, if you have your guys' own listserv or something that we could also use to spread the word around this and make it a good meeting with a good outcome, that it's of true benefit for community members and those that perhaps are new to the Salton Sea conversation or they want to be more involved. This is this space, and we seek your input here at this point in the presentation. If we want to share any thoughts, or if you want to make any recommendations, or if you have any questions, please do so at this moment. Becky, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so I do have one question, sorry. And I know you went over the timeline in the beginning, but what's the time frame that you're looking for? Is this June, July again?
For this meeting, it's during March. It's prior
okay.
to the water board meeting, yes. So we don't have a solid date for that, but it's going to be during the month of March.
And do you already have potential locations? Because you're asking for some feedback, so I wasn't sure if you already had some in mind that maybe people could provide input on.
Yeah, for location, it's going to be an online event, given the current restrictions. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And Maria, I see your hand up too. You have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to give some feedback. The only things I would add would be for the paid ads. I would suggest using like local radio stations, including Spanish. And then for the flyer distribution, similarly, just leaving some physical ones in like local markets or libraries where community is already going anyways. That was it.
Definitely.
Good idea, Mariela, and probably also newspapers if we want to catch. There's the Desert Sun. There's a few newspapers in Imperial. There's a newspaper in the West Shores in Borrego, and that could be good. If we have enough time ahead of time, we could send out press releases, or we can put a paid ad.
Yeah, I've heard the Desert Sun is not gonna do hard copy publishing anymore, so
Wow.
check on
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Josh. We've done some newspaper advertising in the past. So I can share that with the committee or with Carrie if you'd like, and definitely open to more recommendations.
Sure, that'd be great. We could get into the West Shores News.
Yeah, that would be great.
Mhm.
We've done that in the past, so that'd be great.
Yeah, and just to build on Mariela's point about having materials translated, it is definitely our intention. Of course, as you see today, I think this is our first meeting that we have interpretation available, and the presentation slides and the agenda were translated as well. So moving forward, it is a priority for the team to have this available, and of course the materials and promotional items that get developed also will be bilingual or in English and Spanish. And Mariela, I see your hand up again.
Yeah, sorry.
No
Just remember this. Something else community has shared with us is that when we have ads or physical flyers, it would also be useful to have a phone number they can contact to ask any questions about, like, if it's going to be on Zoom and they have questions about how to even get into a Zoom meeting. So for them to be able to do that, I don't know if we have someone appropriate to include their number, but that's something else that they have shared with us.
Thank you for sharing that, Mariela.
So I know we dedicated a lot of time for this. We are hoping also, in addition to any additional feedback that the committee members might have or input related to planning for this upcoming event and how we can promote it, and also engage the community on it. Are there any thoughts on or any comments that you want to add to the structure of the meeting as to how it was presented, or anything else to that effect as well?
And maybe can we go back 2 slides, please? I just want to reference into the right there. Thank you. Into the draft engagement plan that I shared at the beginning of this presentation. So, or perhaps once you see it and compare, on this tentative topics that we have, we're hitting 2 of the committees right here, the Long-Range Planning Committee and the Science Committee. And once you see that timeline, you'll see that there is public events marked there. So this too will be, merged into this SSMP update. So just for reference, or once you see, you have a visual reference that these 2 committees, this is the report or the public meeting per se. So just so you know. And Pat, you have your hand up.
Yes, so this is my comment. Regular comment is no acronyms. We need to get away from acronyms so people understand what we're talking about. So NEPA, you and I, we know that, but the average person doesn't know what that is. So there's NEPA on there. I saw something, SSMP. I know we all know what the SSMP is, but maybe title it or something at the beginning of the meeting or something. And, like we normally do in letters, and then in parentheses, SSMP, all that.
Duly noted. Thank you, Pat. Jenny?
Thanks. Yeah, this is kudos. This is a lot of meetings, and the translation is amazing, and this is just a lot of work. Thank you so much. Just a few thoughts. One, because there are so many meetings, and I appreciate how thoughtfully you're attempting to kind of condense them. Have you all considered, and I know this is something that we brought up in the past here, just like having a consistent regular community meeting that's like a reliable, like once a month or once every other month? Because and I know that this is a moving target, depending on sometimes there will be a higher volume of meetings, sometimes a lower volume. But I'm curious if establishing a consistent community meeting that can not only provide timely updates, but also just like build on more long-term engagement might be something that could be an interesting pivot. And like to that point, I'm wondering, like, I see that there's a very packed agenda for this upcoming community meeting, but I'm wondering if there are opportunities to bake into any community meeting feedback on what people find helpful about meetings, what sort of other trainings and resources that or support that they might want. I wonder how their information is going to be captured and what the follow-up strategy from folks who attend will be. Just, I'm trying to think of ways to build cohesion and consistency with folks who are attending and use the opportunity every time to keep improving on the model. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Jenny. And, regarding the sort of the frequency of this SSMP update community meetings, we try to, on the engagement schedule, we have to have them, or we aim to have them one every 3 months or so. So we'll have about 4 throughout the year. So that's our target. So once you see that particular slide or infographic, you'll be able to see that they're about 3 months apart or so. So as you said, it's a moving target, but we'll aim to have them or make them happen as we have already planned. So thank you. Lauren, have a question?
Sure. Thanks, Miguel. And I second everything Jenny just brought up. I think particularly the point about how feedback is really being sort of integrated into the sort of process and plan is really important. And my comment is also sort of a question, but to me, I think that, excuse me, getting people into the room or into the meeting is sort of like half the battle, but really a lot of it is about how you're actually engaging people. What are the methods? How are you framing things within this sort of like packed agenda, as Jenny was saying, or these topics too? And so I'm curious, I think there's been like a lot of feedback around how engagement is, how outreach is happening prior to the meeting, but I'm curious if you all have put into thought about like what actually the agenda is going to be for the meeting and how it's going to be framed for people and how you're going to be able to sort of like have those conversations with folks via Zoom, because I think that's sort of almost the trickier thing than getting people to come to the meeting.
Definitely. And I hear you on that. Actually, the outreach working group, which is, this sort of subgroup that was created from the engagement committee, will be meeting in the near future to kind of digest all these little details you just mentioned, as of actually have a developed agenda of this meeting and how we can incorporate community in there and not just be sort of a listening session. We want to definitely make sure that we're intentional with what we're saying, not just throwing information out, because we want to be effective and try to provide as much provide information in a meaningful way, to make sure that people capture the ideas and they ask questions and they feel like it's a safe space for them to ask questions and kind of bounce off ideas and start also learning the process, right? Also, we will be mentioning the upcoming water board meeting. So, that's a great opportunity for them to provide feedback. And with this type of updates and the NEPA training and others, I think that would be a substantial way of portraying information for them to be a little bit more prepared and be able to, follow through other spaces, not just this community meetings, but then to start creating that engagement for them to, kind of be latched into the process and learn about it and participate and provide their input. Sahara, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like all the content that's going to be shared during this meeting. I'm wondering if there are other methods of sharing this publicly, like for example, like a 1-pager, if it's possible, or 2-pager of the updates that are going to be provided in that meeting on the website. For the NEPA training session, I was thinking, like, is there an opportunity to do like a 1-minute video of the NEPA process? Or if there's like a timeline that can be created, because there's going to be a lot of information shared there. And not everybody in the community is going to be there. I think it would be a good idea to have this information accessible in other platforms as well.
Thank you, Sahara. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And you know, the video idea, it's a great idea.
So Miguel,
Yes.
I think Melinda last year or the year before had in one of the previous SSMP meetings went through the NEPA process, and she had a couple really good slides that I was really impressed with that kind of broke it down. What's the NEPA process and how it pertains to what we're doing at the Salton Sea. So I bet you she dug that out. That could be really helpful and not have to start all over.
Thanks for that. So we did during the state workshops that were in, like, I think it was September of 2020. We did have some slides about just general slides about what NEPA, and then Corey with the Corps was also there and described it from their perspective. And so I am, by all means, I do not want to reinvent the wheel. So I think that, and then also having a video or that would be something that we could think about doing, and having a script and just talking about it in general terms. And yeah, so that's great feedback.
Miguel, I just want to piggyback on Sahara's comment. I know that images are also much easier to see, like in a PowerPoint, when it comes to the content, instead of seeing a bunch of words on there for the community.
Yeah, definitely. I think we want to be, you know, make it as friendly as we can with, you know, the use of diagrams, infographics, and things like that. Thank you for that feedback.
Ultimately, something really easy to share. I like the idea of a one-pager. That could go in the papers, that can go in social media, that can go in email, and then they could go to the link and find more information on the website as well, or attach more text. But if we're going to share it around social media to a lot of people, a one-pager would be really great.
Thank you. Yeah, and also regarding, you know, frequent updates or project updates, if you are subscribed to the Salton Sea newsletter, you know, we try to be as proactive as we can and try to share as much information as we can. I know not everybody is signed up to that e-newsletter, but there's just another venue that we use to get information out and regarding updates on projects in the program.
So I don't see any additional comments at this moment. I think we got some wonderful feedback as far as how to not only conduct some outreach, but to also really engage the public during this event and really grasp their attention and being able to convey the information in a clear, concise way that is easy to understand, whether if it's through infographics or any additional information. So we got some really good feedback there. I don't know if we're good to move on to the next item.
There's a hand raised in the
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
attendee section.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay.
Nathan White.
I'm going to allow you to speak now.
Hi, I just wanted to maybe touch base and maybe suggest that there should be maybe outreach with Mexico, you know, as part of the region. You know, not specific to water import, but SSMP. There might be some collaboration for water treatment systems of the Alamo and the New River, as it's kind of part of the larger network that has some cross-border kind of issues. But the other suggestion or just thought was new programs in long-range planning, how those things kind of get established, and how programs for submitting ideas or concepts, that would be good to know if there's a formal process for that. I know there hasn't been information released for long-range planning submittals that don't involve water import, but also, you know, solutions that could remediate or clean up Alamo or New River water, there might be alternatives that could be included in the SSMP. Just a few ideas.
It is the same valley, so many of the decisions that we make here could affect northern Mexico. Nathan, do you know of a particular avenue for sharing information well, such as this information with Mexico? Is there a particular forum that you recommend?
Recently, we had a just online forum, and the governor's office of Baja California was involved. So that is a good conduit. There might be others that I can share as far as being different than the governor's office, but having government officials south of the border included in these discussions, there might be some interesting opportunities for collaboration. I know funding is also potential collaboration. NAB Bank and other resources allow funds to flow on both sides of the border.
One last thing, and then I'll let everyone get back to the flow of the meeting. But Nathan, are you interested in sending the governor's office of Baja the listserv information so that we can keep them up to date with SSMP activities?
Sure, yeah, I can send that over to you or the group.
Or it might be the other way around if they're already expecting conversation from you. If you're able to send them contact information for how SSMP updates the public, could be good too.
Sure, yep.
Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, just a quick informational for Nathan is on the water cleanup. Those are can go over to CVWD and IID, since they're the water quality, folks experts. We just met with some folks a few days ago, and that was our direction, was to send them over to CVWD to test out their product.
Would that be the same for water in the Alamo and the New River, if that would be IID or Imperial County?
You'd want to also include the Imperial County Environmental Health. And if Nathan, if you contact me, I can provide you with some additional direct contact information.
Thank you. Yep.
Great. So I want to stay on time and on schedule here. I don't see any more hands raised. We'll move on to the next item. Can we advance the slides, please, Justin? One more, I think. Okay, one more.
There is also one more hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Simpson?
Should be able to speak now.
Yes, hello, Rob Simpson. I actually work with Nathan. I do have a particular question, and this may be for another time. When I was in college, I tutored Newtonian physics. Gravity still sucks. With the West Shore sort of projects that are currently being submitted, they're looking at using existing runoff and precipitation to water the plants. Problem is if we do not import seawater, lake levels will decline to the point where, or Salton sea levels will decline to the point where essentially 800,000 acre feet of inputs will equal 800,000 acre feet of evaporation. And that's about 15 to 17 feet below present day water levels. When this occurs, it will affect all surrounding aquifers. Gravity sucks. The hydraulic head pressure from the existing lake will be reduced by 17 feet, meaning that along the West Shore in particular, any sort of percolating water will go well below the root levels. how are we going to water the plants in a drought year where precipitation in the region comes to zero and you have 115-degree sort of outside temperatures? The chances of, I mean, you're going to have to really reserve a bunch of water trucks to be able to provide sufficient water to keep the plants alive in a drought year 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I'm just wondering, have you guys considered that when you drop the lake level, even for like Coachella Valley, you might have to relocate your municipal water pumps because the water level is going to shift downhill towards the Salton Sea. Has the hydrodynamics of lowering the lake been considered in any of these projects? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for that question. And I think that although it's a good question, it's not necessarily the form where we're here to address. That's more of something that maybe the Long-Range Planning Committee or maybe the Science Committee. Right here, what we're really focusing on is trying to advise the state on how to move forward with engaging the community as they're proceeding with the projects, the implementation of the various projects, or the planning of the various projects. So we're kind of on different topics here, but I think it's really important that you bring that up. And so I'm sure, we have some state folks here, maybe hopefully they took note of that, and that's something that maybe you can circle back with them offline, or maybe during one of the other planning committee meetings, like the long-range planning meeting or something to that effect. I don't mean to dismiss your question. It's just not necessarily, we don't have all the individuals maybe that can respond to that here as well. And we want to really focus on how can we really continue to engage the community as these projects are being implemented and planned, and we continue to move forward with this. So thank you very much for your question. I'm going to move on to the next item. If we can move advanced slides, please. Thank you so much. So this next item, as we mentioned at the last meeting, and many of you participated also, not only during the meeting, but as follow-up to the meeting, we conducted various polls related to when should we have these meetings, what are some good times, language access needs, not just at these meetings, but also at the community meetings. So I'd like to hand this off to Miguel and Moises to really kind of provide you with an update and get some additional feedback as well moving forward.
Thank you, Becky. And can we hit the next slide, please? And this is, as you may recall, we had this polling exercise during our last meeting, our November meeting. And like Becky mentioned, there was some follow-up over email for those that either weren't able to participate. I know we had a glitch back then, or perhaps weren't able to join the meeting. So, we had about 12 responses overall there for these 5 questions. So it's about a third of our membership. So it's a fairly small sample, but I think it's sufficient for our next steps. And perhaps we could go through a similar exercise in the future and see if we can get more responses. And however, you kind of already see that we address the past comments, regarding translation and interpretation, as you see for these meetings, and of course for public meetings. I think for the last few years, translation has been made available for those public events. This question, was the first one. So this regarding the translation and how this committee meetings are conducted. We had about, like I said, 12 responses, and 5 of them, agreed or voted on having the meeting be both English and Spanish with simultaneous interpretation, kind of like a bilingual meeting. However, it was off by a single vote of having the meeting in English and then interpreted into Spanish. So today, just like we're doing it, we're conducting the meeting in English and then interpreted into Spanish with the interpretation service. So if we identified, or perhaps there's a stronger need to have these meetings be bilingual, we can kind of reconsider that and find ways to make this meetings by need, well, if needed. But so again, it was only off by a single vote, and I think we're moving into the right direction, and we want to be intentional with new additions or new improvements that we bring to this committee meeting. So that's question number one. Those are the results. If we can get the next slide, please. So, for this one, there was a general consensus of having, materials, such as the agendas, the slides, the updates and everything to go, to be fully translated. So, as you saw again on this meeting, we have the slides, and the agenda was also translated, again, with only 12 responses, but we know that that's the right way moving forward. So that's why we took that step. Next slide, please. Okay, this one is regarding the meeting hours for the engagement committee meetings. And this question was framed specifically for those that are active members of the committee, not the public, but the actual committee members, which hours work best. And for this one, we only had 11 responses. And out of those 11, 7 agreed to have them during regular business hours. Again, it's a fairly small sample. It's a third of a sample. And if we want to make a change to make them during the evenings, we can definitely make that happen. But the intention for the committee meetings are to have as much as members as we can. And as you see, we send polls around and try to find the best time for most of us to join this meeting. So regular business hours will be the moving forward. Perhaps every now and then we can do that in the evening. And that's different. If we hit the next slide, number 4, that's different for community meetings. Those meetings will be conducting during the evening. As you see, we got responses that those meetings could be more beneficial if we do them after hours, from 5 to 8. And if we hit the next slide, please, we'll see that the best recommended time is to start those meetings at 6, which to me, I could kind of sense that, it will be, if people get off at 5, gives them a good time to get home by 6, be ready, get their laptops ready, or have their meeting start at 6. So moving forward, we'll consider this, to have community meetings start this time. Of course, we don't want to run into, late in the evening, but we want to be as efficient as we can. So I just wanted to share these results with you, and how we are addressing this initial results that we got. And if we go through a similar exercise in the future, again, I just highly encourage your participation so we can have a better sample of the committee members. And with this, I'll ask my colleague Moises to give us a quick update on next steps regarding language access.
There's also a hand raised.
Okay.
Nicola, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. Thank you very much. The comment of the Mr. Rob Simpson was very good, and unfortunately was dismissed as a not subject of this meeting right now. I have something similar actually, and maybe I should leave that for other meeting, but I think that you people should also hear that. It's very important in order, if you proceed with this kind of stuff, to be aware of the fullness of the certain things. If you allowed me, I can read it. It's one page. It's kind of important, or you can dismiss it and I will submit it later on or to some other. May I proceed, or you wouldn't like to hear?
I definitely do not want to dismiss you, but I just want to keep the conversation, with the topic at hand. So if it's related to meeting hours or language access, please proceed with your comment. Or also there is a public comment period towards the end of this meeting, but I'll leave that to your discretion if you want to wait towards around
I'll wait. I'll wait to the end in that case. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem.
Nicola, as well, if you want to submit that comment to the Salton Sea Management Program email, if somebody could, Miguel, what's that email for Mr. Nicola so that he could use?
Yeah, I'll put it on the chat box and send it to him directly.
Great, thank you. We want to be cognizant of people's times and following the agenda today. So, but again, it's not to be dismissive. So thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Mi nombre es Moisés. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Moisés. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to follow up a little bit about what Miguel was commenting. While we would have liked to have seen a little bit more participation, we're also cognizant of all the public input and feedback we've received from our other community engagements. So ensuring that language access and that language is not a hindrance to participation. So this year, as part of our environmental justice initiatives at our agency, we're prioritizing increasing participation through language access. We're ensuring that as an agency, we're improving our community outreach and engagement, and that we're really aligning our environmental justice efforts. The goal of this meeting is really to help in the Salton Sea region to bring coordination. As you saw from the agenda today, it's not only about what our agency is doing, but what our agency partners are doing. So it's an opportunity again for calendar alignment that would help us facilitate the process for community engagement and really identify those opportunities where we could improve, the opportunities where we could align, or really see just be more strategic. Lastly, one of the things that I wanted to mention is as we're getting this feedback and as we're getting feedback in our other meetings, we're taking this to heart, and we want to make sure that we're responsive. So using these forums, contacting us, finding mechanisms to engage, I think will be worthwhile. In regards to language access itself, it is a priority for us. And again, we wouldn't want this to be a hindrance for participation. Thank you. Luis.
Yeah, thank you, Moises, for bringing in this terminology of environmental justice, disadvantaged communities, and much other terminology that characterizes the fence line impacted community. I wonder how much, if enough work has been done through the engagement committee to define and to set expectations, because I think that I'm not sure if everybody kind of is in it for the same reasons in the community engagement. And one thing that comes to mind is that the local governments have not necessarily made significant progress or commitments. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot here, but not all governments have bought into the idea of disadvantaged communities and environmental justice. Unless there's dollars attached to it, and then it becomes a matter of convenience, not a matter of principle. But as I'm kind of thinking about this, I think it's important that this engagement committee is led by people who understand and have made expressed and written commitments to some of these principles that you just uplifted. I think it's only fair and a fair expectation, because ultimately, when we talk about community engagement, we're talking about the concerns that have been uplifted, the shortfalls that have been highlighted, and sort of demands or asks, depending on how you want to take it, from the community have prompted the need for this community engagement. So I want to make sure that as this effort is led, that it is led by parties or stakeholders that have made those express commitments. Otherwise, they're just kind of I hate this word. Please don't hold me against it. But I know some other political operatives call them looky-loos. It's not a term I use, but it just reminded me, about that. I don't really know the full definition, so I apologize if I offend anyone. But I think that it is fair that people who are engaged in this do have internal, if you're an institution, that you do have policies that speak to community engagement, environmental justice, disadvantaged communities. But it should also be a space for learning, right? If it doesn't necessarily unwelcome anyone, I think it should be a welcoming space, but then that track of learning should also be in place, right? So that's just thoughts that come to mind.
Oh, thank you so much, Luis. I can't speak for other governments, but what I can say is that one of the things that we want to do here as part of the charter, right? The charter that was set up for this committee, it really outlined some principles that want us to guide our work. And those principles is really what we're looking for, right? This is a process. We kicked off this committee. It was really with that in mind, right? So we could only exemplify and model it, right? And as other folks, as you talk, as you mentioned, it is a learning opportunity for other folks and for other entities, right? And we just want to make sure that when we have our shortfalls and when we, that we find ways to work together and to really address, right, as we have done in the past, and we don't shy away from these conversations. But to your point, there is a learning curve, and we're just delighted that not only did we were able to listen to the community concerns, but we're able to provide these services, and we will look to improve moving down the line. Mariela.
In terms of language accessibility, the only thing I would add is that I think there has been significant improvement in terms of making it accessible to Spanish speakers, both in meetings and material-wise. I do think that we need to be better in making it accessible to the Purepecha community. And I raised this in the working group that we had recently too, but I wanted to raise it here again.
Thank you for that, Mariela. And that's something that we're actively working on. So thank you for bringing that up. Pat?
Thank you, Luis. Appreciate your comments. I guess sometimes I'm a learner too. And I guess sometimes I don't understand what we're missing. So really, really would appreciate if specifics are highlighted and pointed out where we need to make some changes that get us to where we need to be. That would be helpful. Thank you.
May I, Moises? Because I think it's fair that I think. I look, in terms of cities, counties, specifically to that, let's say, just as an example, it may not necessarily have adopted policies of environmental justice or even recognize environmental justice. There's so many policies in land use, so many policies in environmental protection, but yet I think it's important that institutions do adopt those just to keep up with state policies and federal policies. But I know, we're all small communities, and we know that not all municipalities or counties are moving at the same speed, right? So I'm just acknowledging that. I'm just bringing that, but it could be other entities too. If you're a community-based organization and you focus on disadvantaged community environmental justice, and that's your mission, well, there's no question there, right? But I'm just saying, I think it's important, especially if we're expecting to be led by two chairs. We want to make sure that both chairs do have those commitments and to those principles and do have policies implemented, right? So that's just my thoughts about it. I welcome anyone from any stakeholder, and I encourage everyone, but I think that we do need to make sure that if we're bringing these principles that Moises brought up, and that I think most of us, if not all, are acquainted with, that our institutions need to adopt those policies. CNRA is an example of creating quite historical change, because a lot of this language didn't exist, pre-Newsom administration, pre-Secretary Crowfoot administration. These positions didn't even exist at all. So I'm just saying, I think that it'd be fair to have some expectations from, local institutions and local governments. That's all I'm saying. I hope that was helpful, Pat.
Thank you, Luis. And before I get to you, Tom, Pat, if we want to connect offline and have, there's some resources just based on what Luis mentioned. We're happy to share that with you. Tom?
Yeah, what Luis is bringing up is relevant in more ways than one, because not only are most of the communities most impacted by the declining Salton Sea, disadvantaged communities who are challenged by environmental justice issues. The whole issue that brings us to this table is a profound environmental injustice. When a decision was made to sell off water from this region to the coast and thereby shrink the Salton Sea and thereby cause the problem that we're here trying to figure out how to work with communities and share what solutions there are, and get, I hope, really genuinely engage those communities and get ideas back from those communities about how to solve some of these issues. So this really is all about environmental justice in every way possible. And I thank Luis for reminding us of that again.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, and for those who may not know my position within CNRA, I humbly serve as CNRA's inaugural Assistant Secretary for Equity and Environmental Justice. And if folks want to be able to chat offline in regards to what my role is within this agency, more than happy to do so. So thank you again, Luis, for bringing that up, and for the folks that commented after. Any final questions or thoughts on this topic before we move on with our agenda? And again, thank you all for being here. Great, back to you, Sahara and Becky.
Thank you. So changing gears just a little bit now, the next item that we're going to be discussing is around the charter and some of the subgroups that volunteered to be part of the outreach working group and the annual review. So I'll pass it to Josh and Lisa Tavares to talk about their report out. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all the committee members. My name is Lisa Tavares, and just a little bit of background. I was born and raised in Brawley, and I worked as an educator in the Imperial Valley for 25 years at Brawley High School and Imperial Unified School District. Currently, I'm in Riverside County and working for FIELD. That's the Farm Workers Institute of Education and Leadership Development, as the education director. So FIELD is a nonprofit founded by Cesar Chavez in 1978 and provides educational opportunities to underserved communities. The programs include the Cesar Chavez Conservation Corps and EPIC, which is an adult charter high school. So I'm just really excited that these projects are moving forward, and we can start to see improvement and benefits coming to the wildlife and the environment and the people that surround the Salton Sea. So thank you for all your hard work. Josh, did you want me to just go ahead and go through the update?
Sure. And we can go to the next slide.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So our working group met,
One
there's
more,
about 9.
one more slide, and then we'll go back to this one. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Lisa. Sorry.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you. You interrupt anytime you want. So our working group met, and we met February 3rd. We had a very thoughtful dialogue about the composition and the number of members that would be optimal for this group. We discussed whether new members are needed to increase the reach, the outreach, and better engage the community. There's definitely a desire to have the needed voices in the room. And so we wanted to discuss, what did that look like? How does the membership composition look from each sector of people affected by the work that is proposed? And so the working group came up with some recommendations, and I just want to kind of go through, hopefully quickly, the different recommendations they came up with. So for the local community leaders, there was a suggestion about combining Mecca and North Shore, combining Thermal and Oasis, and then separating West and Central Coachella Valley to add members from the communities, or those communities. Community-based organizations, there was a suggestion about adding a senior citizens organization, some of the smaller retired groups in the area, adding tourism, considering maybe Great Palm Springs, CVB, possibly Scott White, and looking into the Purepecha community youth groups as well. And then for public health, we discussed adding maybe Desert Health Care District, looking into the equivalent in Imperial County, possibly Borrego Health, Pioneers, or El Centro Regional, and then looking into adding promotoras. And so we discussed that. In agriculture, we looked at adding, growing the Coachella Valley. And for economic development, we talked about adding the Imperial Valley Economic Development Corporation and adding the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber, possibly Imperial Valley Chamber of Commerce as well. In the academic area, we talked about Imperial Unified School District, a teacher, science teacher there, Dennis Gibbs, possibly would add a good voice to this conversation. Maybe adding representative from University of Redlands, San Diego State University, possibly also Cal State San Bernardino. And then we talked about tribal nations and saw that we needed to update the list of tribal nations that we had as possible members, and also looking into the Four Winds Coalition, which I believe, I don't know if Pat, you had explained that to us, but it was a group of tribal nations that send out representatives to various partner agencies in order to get the information and then bring it back to other tribal nations. We looked at local agencies like County Water and Air, adding the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and possibly the California Natural Resources Agency to follow up on the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. So for recommendations on the solicitation process, we talked about maybe developing a single form, an application that people could use to apply, or having some kind of form to submit a nomination for a person to be a part of the group. And there was a concern making sure that we were upfront in stating what's needed and expected of members, time commitment, that people knew going into it what would be needed. And then to maybe consider adjusting meeting times to after hours to accommodate new members, and possibly compensating members with stipends. So next steps that we discussed was to provide this report to you today, and then to analyze current membership composition and determine the potential number of new members that would be added. So there's a conversation around, how many members would be needed or appropriate, would be a good number to have in this group. And then to see what current members are active, because there were a lot of members on the list, so we want to make sure everyone's active. And then develop a nomination form for new members, and to finalize recommendations and the solicitation process. So those were the next steps. And Josh and Miguel, if you have anything else to add, please go right ahead.
I think that was great. I would just add that this annual review working group will be meeting again to do all of those next steps that Lisa just identified, and to bring forth their recommendations to the entire engagement committee. So stay tuned for those recommendations and future discussion on those. And I guess before we go on to the next quick update, are there any questions from the committee? I see a hand raised by Chuck.
Yeah, yes. For one thing, I have been bringing this point up for 2 years, I think. Our group, the Salton Sea Coalition, has worked closely with the representatives on the city councils in the Coachella Valley. And there have been a number of people on those city councils who have been very interested in helping restore the Salton Sea, and who are active, who would love to be part of the process. And I've brought it up a number of times that I think there should be at least 1 or 2 representatives from those city councils in the Coachella Valley, because they do have a really big stake in the outcome here. The economy, you all know, is based on tourism. They will be affected by the dust storms that'll blow. So all these folks, a lot of them are retired, they're fragile, and they have a stake in healthcare. And so I just want to urge that again. I'd like to participate. I don't know how I missed it, but in the discussions with this working group, another possible way of getting representation from the city councils would be the Environment and Energy Committee of CVAG. Should be represented here, definitely. They passed a number of resolutions in support of restoring the Salton Sea, in support of giving water import a fair evaluation. And at the last meeting I attended, I think I might have missed the last meeting, it was announced somewhere that instead of having a member of that committee, who are all elected city council people who are interested in the Salton Sea, CVAG had appointed Tom Kirk, who's the executive director there, to be the representative from CVAG. And I object to that. I think the members of that committee would object to that. So the number of points that Lisa brought up of possible additions to membership, when we're talking about elected representatives of the city councils, we're not talking about management of an air district or a county agency or the Natural Resources Department. God knows we have enough representatives from Natural Resources on this committee. I mean, they're all good people, but I'd far rather see local leaders involved who are in touch with their communities than another level, 4 or 5 or 6 managers or people who are basically administrators. So I just want to say that I want to be part of this discussion, and I'm looking forward to an answer to my question at some point, because it feels like, it has felt like, I bring it up, nothing said, nobody responds. Is that the way this is supposed to work? I mean, if you don't want to put people on this group from the city councils, just say so, but then you have to own it. It's far better than it's like stonewalling somebody. So that's my comment.
I'd like to echo support for Mr. Parker's comment.
Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Chuck. I'll just respond really quickly from my point of view, not necessarily for the state, but I don't think we're trying to prohibit an elected official from participating by any means on this committee. And it was our intention to reach out to CVAG to have a representative from CVAG participate on the committee that could then use their mechanisms at their agency at CVAG to reach out to all of the cities of the Coachella Valley. And I had made contact with their director of environmental resources about this. Unfortunately, they had a staffing change over there. So we are going to circle back around with them, and I will bring this up to them, bring your point up to them as to whether or not an elected official from the cities would be a good fit and something they would support. And also, if you have recommendations, Chuck, as to specific elected official leaders that you think are interested or that you've spoken with, please send those to us. So.
Okay, I will do.
Okay, thank you
Josh.
so much. Thank you.
And Josh, if I just may quickly interject here, Chuck, I think you're more than welcome to join the conversations from this charter review and working group. So like Josh mentioned, they will be meeting in the near future. So if you like, we can add you to the subgroup list for you to be engaged in that conversation as well.
Yes, please do that. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Chuck. Pat, do you have a hand up, or you take it down?
Well, yeah, no, I was just going to say the same thing in response to Chuck's comments, that the discussion was to have a member from CVAG, whoever they want to appoint. It's up to the elected body to decide who they want to represent them. And so if they ask for Tom to do it, then it'll be Tom. If they want the environmental staffer to do it, then that's who it'll be. We're not preventing any elected to join. They can join anytime. I just haven't seen them reach out, and they know that these meetings happen. They get an update, but in the update that was given, the PowerPoint to all the members here, I believe they're included on that listing. Josh, I'm just not seeing it. But on the summary of the CEC charter process for membership review.
Oh, that we went over in the group?
Yeah.
Yes, you mean, do we have the cities from the Coachella Valley listed, included in that? Is that your question?
Yeah, I saw the Borrego Health and all the universities and the membership composition potential. It's listed right here, Coachella Valley Association of Governments. So that has been discussed, and there are next steps for that, Chuck.
Right, that is correct. So that's something we're actively working on. So thank you, Pat. Luis?
So I guess my comments not so much as to the membership and who participates. I think should be welcoming to all, but I did just want to remind us, I don't know how many of you have been around this committee from the beginning, but it was formed to give community a voice. And when I mean community, or it's not necessarily, and I'm not saying it's limited to, I think there's two different things here, is all can play a role in helping give community a much stronger, much more equitable voice. And it doesn't matter where they come from, whether it's industry, government, or other stakeholders. What I'm saying is that initially it was intended to give community, or the voiceless, or those who wouldn't have the resources necessary to participate. I guess one way that I can provide an example is, there is a large segment of the population who doesn't necessarily have lobbyists or have full-time dedicated people to having a voice, right? And so we want to make sure that at the time that community, and exactly what Moises said, I mean, he said it better than I'm saying it, but we want to make sure that all advocates and the people that they're representing had a voice. The model changed at one point, and I think it was by self-determination, but at one point it was actually led by CNRA. And CNRA facilitated all stakeholders' inclusion. And then the model changed. It transitioned several years ago to the chair model. And so going back to my comment is, if we're going to have a chair model, are we paying attention to making sure that the chair model has also committed to the disadvantaged and environmental justice principles, so that we're not deviating from the intents and purposes of what originally the community engagement purpose was, right? Or are we just looking at membership right now, or are we looking at also whether we continue with the chairman? It's not the first time I bring it up, so it's not a new conversation. But I think that maybe it's the time to revisit that. Is it working? Do we want to continue with this? Or do we want CNRA to continue to facilitate it so that it engages everyone, right? I hope that's helpful. I hope I'm not confusing things more. But I do feel that if somebody's going to serve on the chairmanship, that your institution has committed to environmental justice in disadvantaged communities and has policies that confirm that commitment, right? And I would say comparable to CNRA's as a baseline. So I would say that maybe we should also add the chairmanship to the review. That's just my recommendation, but I'll leave it to everyone else to decide if it's important or not.
Thank you, Luis, for that feedback. We can bring it up to the committee to the working group at the next meeting.
Can I respond?
Sure, go ahead, Pat.
Thanks, Luis. So yeah, the model changed, and I've been on this committee since its inception. And originally when we started, CNRA had no staff. It was us, it was the locals, it was you and me and Bruce and Phil Rosentrader and Juan de Lara and just a handful. It's Carrie, there you go, yeah. Rebecca. It was just a handful of us, and the state didn't have the capacity to get the word out. And so, a lot of the locals were on the ground. We took the message to the streets. We did the best we could. We got involved, engaged. We lobbied the state as they got more funds to build capacity and staffing so that they could do it and help us to create our message and all be on one page. And so, yes, it changed because staffing increased, capacity increased, the projects started happening. We had to educate more, we had to educate ourselves. So yeah, it changed because our situation changed. We accepted this current model because we felt it was a good way to continue the messaging. And, we're 2 counties and we have over 100 stakeholders. And so our message had to be, broader and understanding, and yet still keeping the locals in the loop. I like the way the model is. We haven't had it for very long, so I think we should probably give it a little, a bit of a chance as we grow and improve. But this is what we accepted several months ago, I think at the beginning of last year. I think that if we accept it, then we should try and work within it, suggest changes like everybody does and is really good at it. We have so much expertise on this committee and with the stakeholders. Everybody always comes up with great ideas. I've been on this project since 2003, like you, even longer. But I think you talk about lifting up. Let's lift up this committee. Thank you.
May I just do a real quick follow-up? And look, I don't mean to put Imperial County on the spot, but I guess I have to, just to kind of get my point across. But it would be great, and I don't know what exactly the conditions are of the Coachella Valley and the county. But it would be great to if we're going to continue to have Imperial County serve as a chair, and there's nothing against Rebecca at all. She's not the policymaker, but it would be great because she does represent the county to have the county commit to comparable commitments to disadvantaged communities and environmental justice coming from the board. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, it would be great. I know they recently made an effort to put together a equity around health. So I think why stop there? Let's bring Imperial County to the comparable level of commitment that CNRA has made around disadvantage and environmental justice, and the state, quite frankly, right, and around equity as well. So maybe it's an opportunity, and I'll bring it back to the chair. Maybe it's an opportunity. I'm happy to work with you, Rebecca, if there's any way that we can bring the county to commit to those same expectations. You know, equity. Environmental justice, disadvantaged communities, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to discuss that, Luis. If you have some proposed language, I know Moises offered something earlier. I'm happy to bring that to the board's attention and have the board make that decision.
All right, great. So I see we have a question from Rob Simpson. I don't know if that's a question on this item or from an old agenda topic, but Rob?
Yes, this really does have to do with much of the interactions between agencies. And I very much appreciate comments in terms of outreach from this committee to other government agencies. And specifically here, I'm talking about including NASA, NOAA, and the USGS. In a recent conversation I had with Aquifer PhDs regarding the Coachella Valley Aquifer, I know that the USGS is currently conducting a study in that area. All I'm suggesting is that these folks have an awful lot of information that may not be accessible to the committee or committees, and it may be a very good idea to ask them, not for them to reach out to you. It is you that need to reach out to them, because you know they're way up in the federal government and they have a lot of information, because I've talked with a lot of them. I just ask you to please consider, I can provide you with email address, contact information for many of the people involved in these studies. I just say, hey, look, this is the USGS, this is NASA, this is, what was that, a third one? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of different federal government type of agencies. This is a bigger situation than just the local government issues. What happens in the Salton Trough, the Salton Sea, Laguna Salada, etc., affects weather patterns. They know this. They can tell you more things about it than I possibly can. I'm just saying that I can serve as a conduit to provide you with contacts for NASA, USGS, and NOAA. And these are folks that really can provide a great deal of input on how to do this stuff. Thank you for your time, and I thank you for allowing me to talk on these subjects. I'm really not trying to be facetious or a bad person. I'm just saying, hey guys, there's more resources out there than we're currently taking advantage of. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. If you would please shoot myself or Miguel a note with those contacts, we'd be happy to bring them to the working group for discussion and consideration. And really appreciate your help and recommendation on that. So with that, Justin, if we could go back one slide, please, really quickly. So I just want to give a quick update on the outreach working group. We previously had mentioned that this group would be meeting in the next week or two. So as a friendly reminder to those of you on the working group, please check your inbox from a reminder from Miguel that I believe was sent out the other day, so that we can schedule that meeting and have this group meet. Really is going to be a great opportunity to really look at this upcoming update community meeting and really dive into a lot of the comments we discussed regarding how we're going to frame and coordinate and promote this meeting. So we really could use this group's recommendations and assistance. So really, please check your inbox so we can schedule that meeting in the next week or two. And with that, I think we are ready to move on to public comments, the next agenda item.
Well, I got a quick item.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Art.
Following to Mr. Simpson's input, how long has the CNRA been talking about having a science committee? We hear from multiple sources that we should follow science. And so my question to this group is, following science, is hay bales as far as we can get science-wise? I mean, of all the brilliant people that have studied the problem of the Salton Sea and our ever dwindling supply of water in the Western United States, so far our highest level of achievement in the populated areas is hay bales. No discussion, we're gonna plant seedlings, that's great. How are we gonna water them? Where are we gonna get the water? Where are we gonna get the sustainable water? These are all key issues that will not go away, and we are not gonna achieve any large sustainable success unless these questions are answered with science. When are we gonna have the science? That is my question.
Thank you, Art. I think that right now at this moment, we're going to enter public comments, and that question that you're talking about, I know that there's going to be a science committee meeting coming up. Miguel, do you have any information about when that science committee is happening for those who are asking those particular questions?
Yes, and the science committee will be meeting this month. Actually, an announcement will be made in the near future, also with a new date for the next Long-Range Planning Committee meeting. So yes, the committee will be meeting in the near future, and please be on the lookout for that in newsletter, and I'll personally can forward that if need be to you directly for you to get an invitation to the public event of the science committee.
Okay, thank you, Miguel. Carrie.
Sure, thank you. Just checking in to see, are our committee members and structures posted somewhere on the CNRA website? I'm not sure where to go and look where these committees are if I want to contact people or if I want to learn something from any of them.
Yeah, and the engagement committee and the long-range planning committee are the only ones that we have sort of like a solid list of those that are active members, and they will be posted on the CNRA website along with the charter. That, you know, for both our charter, I think we have the initial 1.0 version that it's ready to be translated and uploaded into the website. And similar thing with the long-range planning committee. However, the contact information it's not public per se, but if you would like to, we can coordinate with each of the committee leaders, so we can, so if you want to have a conversation with any of them or perhaps the whole group.
Thank you, Miguel. It seems like that could be a helpful thing, maybe checking with the committee members and seeing if they'd like to opt in to have their contact info listed. And then also, it's interesting we don't have the committee members finalized for the science meeting. That should be very soon. I'm just a little confused by that, just after some comments. Is there a finalized structure? Do we know who's on the science committee that's reviewing the NEPA that's reviewing all of these projects that are almost published?
I can address that, Miguel.
Thank you, Tanya.
My name is Tanya Marshall from CDFW, and I'm the lead for SSMP on the Science Committee. I'm forming it. It is a newly
Awesome,
formed committee. It is a newly formed committee, and we will be posting really soon when the anticipated public meeting is. We are putting together that meeting still, and we are just now finalizing all of the committee members, and that will be public at that meeting.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you. With the time that we have left, we want to make sure that we have time for the public to comment. Thus far, there's been opportunities here and there for committee members to voice their opinions and feedback, and some of community members who've raised their hand and have been able to speak. So participants, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Also, please conduct your comments in a respectful manner. Some questions and comments we might not be able to get a response during the meeting. Others might require a follow-up. Are there any public comments?
There's 2 hands raised. Nicola, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I missed this meeting. I was on in Saturday. It's Salton Sea Management Program, and I just realized right now this is engagement committee comment. Sorry about that, but I have prepared one comment, and it's 1 page. If you allow me 30 seconds extra, I would appreciate it. It's very, very important, right? Greetings, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a few questions. Actually, this was directed really for the management of the Salton Sea Management Program, but I'm going to send to you. My name is Nikola Lakic. I'm graduate engineer architect. Let me just put this on screen here. As you might know by now, I'm strongly opposing the current course of action, namely the project that you are briefing the public today, updating. This is a very important topic. It is critical for the fate of the Salton Sea, the environment, the health and economy of the nearby communities, and at large, the economy of the state of the California. Members representing environmental justice, please pay attention. Question. It is obvious from the Salton Sea Management Program update, the letter which I received, and action already underway, vegetation enhancement projects to restore exposed lake bed site, namely Clubhouse, Tule Wash, Bombay Beach. It comes to about 1,700 acres or 2.6 square miles. That is in addition to 4,100 acres specific species conservation habitat project. That's summarized to about 5,800 acres or 9 square miles. As you know, it is already difficult to find necessary water to help projects and facilitate plants' growth and plants' survival. You do understand that if the current course of action continue, if it's not stopped, will be relatively soon about 200 square miles of lake bed exposed. My question is, how do you plan to manage 200 square miles if you have difficulty managing only 9 square miles? Second question.
I have 1 minute.
Second question. Okay. Second question. It is obvious from Salton Sea Management Program update, the letter, and action already underway that a management, Salton Sea Management Program, collaboration with the management of the Bureau of Reclamation, Salton Sea Authority, Riverside County, Imperial County, Coachella Valley Water District, Imperial Irrigation District are already excluding, let me repeat it, excluding importation of the seawater as a feasible solution. If the panel of the independent reviewers concludes that the importation of seawater is feasible and very profitable, but not compatible with the current course of action, the dust suppression project, etc., Question: what is your plan regarding the current course of action? Are those projects going to be flooded, or are you going to stop them, or on time with minimal losses of money and time, or are you going to continue? And third, just 5 seconds. What do you expect to learn more than it is already obvious from North Lake pilot program? Would you please give me a straight answer now to my question? Thank you. Okay, this is not a question for you, but this was really for Salton Sea management project, whoever is in charge. And I will repeat this, the same question. I'm going to say, can somebody send me email where I can contact you regarding this and maybe submit this to you also, and to the Salton Sea management program regarding this question? I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, of course, Nicola, and thank you for reading over your letter. I think it would be important for that letter to be sent as well. I would say that it would need to be sent to Miguel. So Miguel, if you can provide your email address to Nicola, so he can be able to send it to you, and you'll be able to send it to the other people.
Yes, definitely. If you wanna send it directly to me, it's my email is miguel.hernandez@resources.ca.gov. And also, if you want to add the CNRA contact email, that actually gets to our management. So that one would be CNRA-Salton Sea, also at resources.ca.gov. And I can repeat that if need be.
Thank you, Miguel.
Is there a dot between name and last name? Oh, okay.
Yes, there's a dot for Miguel.Hernandez, yes.
And then after that?
It's at resources.ca.gov, G-O-V as in Victor.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next person we have is Rob. Once again, just a reminder, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, for several decades, I ran hillside developments in Southern California. So I'm well familiar with moving dirt and management practices in terms of building an entire hillside community in Southern California. And it requires essentially a contact list. To supplement the previous gentleman's comments, I would request that these email addresses and contact information we need a contact list that is on one of the websites. It could be through the Salton Sea management program or wherever, where we can actually attain now, I know it's a pain in the butt, but this is how communications are established. I would love to send contacts for NASA or USGS to different people, but my shorthand on long email addresses is not that good. We need a place where we can go and find the information, who to contact, what their role is in the program, and how to get in contact with them and send them information. You know, I can give you mine. The letters are WS as in Sam, INAZ1@gmail.com. My cell phone number is area code 714-335-1223. We need to get all this information onto a contacts list to facilitate better communications. So we can get folks like NASA or USGS or all these other folks, so we can get everyone talking. And I know it's a pain in the butt, and I know there would be bad comments or other things coming in, but we got to be able to separate that out and get that good communication going. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for that recommendation.
I like the idea of having a more comprehensive contact list on the website of involved organizations and people. And perhaps if we had better communication, we could better tie in the federal government, who seems to not want to touch this issue. They have more money than California does, and this is an issue that touches the entire Colorado River watershed. So it seems like they should be able to help pay for some of the restoration as well.
Thank you. So
Or at least a lot more than they are.
Thank you. So it's 4:03. This meeting was planned from 2 to 4 p.m. I don't see any more hands raised at this point. Just a couple seconds to see if anybody has from the public comment or a question.
Looks like Rob has his hand raised again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rob?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Carrie, I would like to thank you for that comment. Just so you know, the Four Corners region, all right, you know, there's 50 million people now that depend on the Colorado River flows. If we reduce evapotranspiration from the essentially Salton Basin, or the Salton Trough is the correct geologic term, we reduce precipitation in the Colorado River Basin. We're not shooting ourselves in the foot here, we're shooting ourselves in the head. If we dry out the Salton Sea, we dry out precipitation in the Colorado River Basin. I have hundreds of pages of written documents that I've done myself, plus probably 200 PhD level papers written on the subject. I need to get that information out. And it's just, I run into this block wall of just not getting the actual true data and actual information out there. Guys, this is a very powerful place in terms of the hydrologic cycle, the water cycle in the Western United States. And we really need to consider that. And again, yes, I may be over passionate about it, but I live on the Colorado Plateau and I love the monsoon. And I know that it takes low pressure zones dropping down San Diego way in order to get winter precipitation up into the Colorado River Basin, because it wraps around it and moves from the southwest to the northeast. It doesn't come in over the mountain ranges from the northwest. It's called a rain shadow effect from multiple mountain ranges. We have to learn how to manage not just what falls, but how it falls as precipitation. And this is what the Trace Lagunas, or the more current name, Trace Mars, is about. Hey guys, Laguna Salada is flooding now.
Rob, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thanks.
I'm not sure. I thought we were out of time.
I'm done.
Rob, you may be a good candidate for the science committee. I appreciate a lot of what you're working on, and I agree with many of the things you said, but this is a forum for sharing information with the public through those that have the means to share that information about the governmental meetings and structures that are managing Salton Sea restoration. So we're really grateful for your work, and please keep up that passion because we absolutely need it. Have you been in contact with whoever is needed, I'm not sure, for structuring yourself somehow into the science committee instead of the outreach committee for that type of information?
I have not. I need the contact information for those types of folks. I would love to contribute not only my information, but essentially the body of work from the PhD community.
Agreed. It sounds like you'd be good to speak to Miguel. Are you the person for him to reach out to for involving in the science committee? I know we're wrapping up today and it's just not quite the right conversation.
So long.
Yes, you can send me an email, Rob, and I can direct you, or how to get the meeting announcements and participate at the public events.
Okay, so it's
and I'm thinking like talk about how the science committee works and how involvement is with him. I've seen his work over the years. He's done a lot of studies in these, and he could be a valuable member. I'm not sure the vetting process, but I think that's a more appropriate forum for Rob's work.
That's fantastic. I'd love to do it. I just need the contact information.
Yeah, I think Miguel provided his contact information earlier, but
I
once
can
again,
get
it's
it.
Miguel.
I have it.
Dot
To
Hernandez
some
at,
extent.
okay. And so I think that's a good conversation that you guys can have offline to provide him some additional direction and information on the science committee or how he may be able to get more involved in that process. So thank you all very much for your participation, for your information that you've shared, for your input. I think that is there another slide after this, Justin? Yeah, so we've passed that. One more, please. Thank you. So we've come to the end of the meeting. Sahara, thank you very much as well for leading this meeting and for carrying us through the rest of the agenda as well. I think we have some wonderful input here. There is some follow-up. I know when it comes to the poll, the results were shared later. We'll to see if we can identify some additional opportunities in membership participation. We had the update for the community meetings. There's tons of suggestions that were provided about flyer distribution, about advertisements, regarding also some additional infographics and other materials that can be utilized to share that information, and that is a way that's easier to digest and retain, so that way we could really engage the community. There were poll results that were shared in regards to the language accessibility. So it was shared with you guys as far as how the state will be moving forward with meetings and with material translation and so forth. So as far as next steps, I know the next item in regards to the annual review working group and the outreach working group, there will be some follow-up. They plan to have some additional meetings and provide formal suggestions to the committee and the state staff, so that way they can figure out kind of how to proceed with filling the gaps when it comes to membership. There was also some additional information that was provided by various members of the community, and hopefully there's some follow-up to that as well, and some offline conversations with state staff that way they can get some additional direction and clarification as well. And I don't know if I missed anything, Sahara. If I did, please feel free to add whatever I might have missed.
No, you're good.
I'd like to share gratitude for all of those that keep showing up to these meetings. We understand this is a challenging task and a challenging conversation, but there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of passion and a lot of determination here to make something great and not let this Salton Sea fall into somewhere where we don't want to or have to live. We have such beautiful visions of how to restore and keep this place alive, and I'm so grateful for all of you, and let's keep it up. Thank you so much for all of your work and feedback.
Yes, thank you all so much. I don't know, Miguel, is there any last things you guys want to add?
No, I think we can wrap up our meeting. Thank you all for attending. Muchas gracias.
Good work, team. See you next time.
Thanks, Carrie, for your enthusiasm.
Hey, we got to do it.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank
You
you
guys
all.
all have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.